from the Supreme Court of Nevada Judicial Education Unit, your host. I've got Brandi Jinkerson from the Supreme Court of Nevada Administrative Office of the Courts here with us today. Brandi is our Audit Manager, and she's here to talk, well, about audits. So, Brandi, thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, let's just dig right into it. When you go out to our courts to conduct an audit, how panicked should the court staff be?
We don't want you to panic at all. I know historically we've been resource strained, so courts don't have experience with us, and so they have no clue what to expect. But one of my objectives of this, and what I want to kind of rebrand our reputation for the AOC audit unit, is to really focus on that we are a resource to the courts and an ally and somebody they can come to if they have questions. It's exactly purposely why when we go out to do on-site field work, we don't wear full-on suits. We don't come in looking like men in black. Audit does not need to be scary, and I don't want us perceived that way. And so I want courts to be comfortable calling myself or any member of our audit team just to ask questions, even when we're not performing an audit.
Okay. So do you already get questions from different courts in Nevada?
There's about a handful of courts, especially the court administrators, and then a few judges that will reach out on a regular basis just to check in and be like, hey, we're seeing this. What do you think? And it's like, call me.
Right. So besides the courts calling and asking questions, which might then trigger you to go, let me come out and look at that. Is that fair to say?
I've actually only had one county request an audit, and I immediately jumped on it because audit never just gets asked to come. And so it was an audit of a district court and 2 justice courts, and we jumped right on it, and that audit was, tailored to the question. Okay.
So that brings up so many other questions. Is that really the best way to go about getting an audit? Like if a court staff, court administrator, or judge sees something and they're not sure about, is it preventative? Is it best to just contact your office?
Absolutely. Okay. Yes. And then we can talk through the issues, and it doesn't have to be a full-on audit. You can send me some documentation. I can come out and do a quick visit. It doesn't have to be something huge and formal. We can just consult with each other.
Okay.
Yeah, we're available for consulting.
Oh, that's awesome. So then besides the court just picking up the phone and saying, hey, Brandi, I need you to come out and look at this, what else would trigger an audit?
So generally every year I do an annual audit plan, and this is based on a risk assessment I perform of the audit universe, so the 74 courts and the 62 state grant-funded specialty court programs in the state. This risk assessment has different metrics that are weighted. The higher the weighted score, the more likely to receive an audit in the next year. Some of the metrics we look for are if there's changes in case management systems, change in staffing levels, your disposition rate, administrative assessment collections, your external audit reports that we receive every 4 years, collecting those, and then obviously any reported fraudulent activity that doesn't get put on the audit report, that means you see us tomorrow. But that is generally how it works.
Do you look through these reports monthly, weekly, quarterly? Is there a report that you get from the court that you review?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, it's all external data that we have to go looking for.
Oh.
Yes, and we'll get maybe AOC will have observations at other courts or be there for different reasons and see things, and it gets reported back to us, and that just gets part of our risk.
Okay. What exactly are you auditing?
Abroad, for all of the audit unit, is generally that we are auditing the operations, the financials, and case process of our audit universe. When you get into specific audits, that's where it gets a little bit more specific. So like a mass audit, which is our standard audit, that's the minimum accounting standards. We test against version 3.1, which was approved in January 2018. And that one is more heavily focused on operations and the financials. So the payment receipting, disbursement, separation of duties, payment card data industry standards, trust accounting, bank reconciliations, that sort of stuff. Then we also have specialty court program audits, and these specialty courts that we audit are state grant funded. So we perform compliance audits to determine that the funding they receive from the state is spent in accordance with the funding guidelines. Mm-hmm. Now, we also are tasked with performing mass certification audits. This is for case management systems. There are we're a non-unified system, so there are approximately 17 different iterations of case management systems. That number is probably wrong. It is ever changing. But these case management systems are required to be MAS and USJR certified due to Administrative Order 398. Minimum accounting standards is MAS, and the Uniform System of Judicial Records is our USJR. It's our statistics. We also can get special reviews. Those would be if a new law passed. When Marcy's Law was passed in November, I think 2018, we were tasked by a justice to go out and do a special review of one of our largest courts specific to this issue or this law. Marcy's Law requires that the court satisfies restitutions prior to accepting fines and fees from defendants. And so because I am so passionate about that law and believe so much into it, we actually added that to our standard MAS audit. So that one's just a standard one. We also look at courts to determine that they are only assessing fines and fees from guilty defendants, that they are properly adjudicating cases prior to assessing fines and fees. Because we've been so resource strained, there's so many little facets of the judiciary that audit has not even gotten to touch or go deeper into. And so with the growth coming in our audit unit, I can't wait to see how much we can help the public and help promote that high level of public trust.
And so you talk about the growth a little bit. Can you explain what growth and where that came from and what you're looking at?
So this unit currently has 3 auditors. Historically, this unit was created in 2007 as a result of a recommendation by an LCB audit. In approximately 2011, 2012, a second judicial auditor was brought on. That second judicial auditor worked until 2015 before they left for another job opportunity. The unit was only the one original judicial branch auditor until I was hired in 2017. The 80th legislative session approved a third one, which is where we are currently at. So we have, I think it's approximately like 150 some auditable entities in our universe. Wow. Using how large our audits are, and we can approximately get to maybe 4 or 5 audits a year, which puts us at around a 31-year audit cycle. That means it would take us 31 years to audit every single court and every program a single time. So a court clerk could work 30 years, retire with a pension, and have never met us. That is and was completely unacceptable. And so with the support of our state court administrator, who is very passionate about audit, we put together a request for this 82nd legislative session. So for the 82nd legislative session, I originally was going to request just 4 auditors as growth and new audit software. After consulting with our state court administrator, she said, ask for the sun, moon, and the stars. Ask for 10. Maybe they'll meet you in the middle and you'll get 5, and you'll have 1 more than you originally requested. As I'm listening to the approvals come down, I hear them approve my audit software and all 10 of my auditors. And I literally dry heaved because I was like, what am I getting myself into?
Now you have to hire all those people.
Right. And that's where we're currently at right now. So right now I have my 3 audit supervisors in place. Our last one, our first Carson City auditor, just started this week. We've never had a presence in Carson City. We've always been Las Vegas based. So we will have a Carson City auditor and her 3 staff. And then I have 2 supervisors down south and their 3 staff each. So we're going from a team of 3 to 13, which after they're all fully trained will get us to an acceptable 4-year audit cycle.
So these audits are pretty detailed. Like there's not just one specific thing you're looking for. Mm-hmm. You're going through a lot of data and things are popping out at you, maybe.
Yes.
Or not.
Yes, we experience a lot of scope creep.
Okay.
Yes.
Scope creep.
Yes.
Interesting.
That's what audit calls it. So we have an original scope, and we have to watch it a little bit because you can go down a rabbit hole and then blow your audit hours. But we are allowed a little bit of leeway in there.
Okay. So how many more auditors do you need to hire?
I need 9. We're in the process of hiring 1 of our regular judicial branch auditors, and we've got 8 more to go.
As I'm listening, I mean, the word audit kind of puts a little fear in anyone, I think. But as I'm listening to you, it's not almost, but it is our duty, really, as public servants, to make sure we're being accountable for not only the job that we're doing, but the funds that we're spending, and then so much more. And you're really our partner in making sure that we stay accountable and that our courts are running with integrity.
Yes, which is what requires me to remain independent and objective from anyone in the judiciary.
Okay.
Yeah, and we can consult with policies and procedures, but we cannot take ownership of anything we potentially could audit.
Interesting. What did you call it? The scope?
Scope creep.
Scope creep. So can you share with us, like when you're going through an audit, is there specific things that you're looking for?
So part of our audits is docket testing. And so we're looking for the case process flow. I mean, in one instance, I had somebody in a different department who noticed something and said, hey, will you take a look at this while you're in there? And we realized it was occurring. And so it got added to our audit. And so we had to add it to every single testable sample that was in our original audit.
Okay.
And that's how scope creep can happen. And because we have the autonomy in audit to kind of manage ourselves, we allow it.
But there must be things that just stand out to you just because you have that experience and knowledge of what looks standard and what does not.
Yes.
One of the reasons that we produce these podcasts on judicial education is to extend public access. If you're listening and you're enjoying this podcast, you can help us with that. If you would just pass this information on to someone that you know and encourage them to listen in as well, we would appreciate it. Thank you. Let's kind of review the benefits of having an audit done. What when our judges are listening to this, they're gonna want to know what's in it for me. No, as anyone would. What's the benefit to my organization? What's the benefit to my court in calling out for an audit?
Okay. So for one, you get to meet AOC audits.
Yay!
But really, compliance isn't the only reason. One of the main reasons, not the only reason to have an audit. An audit can help provide peace of mind to court administrators and judges that their court is operating in a control-conscious environment. Having a clean audit performed of your court can add credibility to your court to the public. But also, the most important reason to have an audit is to prevent and deter fraud. Fraud can happen to anyone. And I hear from courts at times that say, they only hire people they trust. And yes, while that is true, not just bad people commit fraud. Generally, good people can commit fraud. It just takes 2 points of the fraud triangle, say pressure and opportunity, for fraud to happen to a generally good person. That clerk who's been working there 20 years, all of a sudden is experiencing extremely high medical bills or credit card debt. And so that is their external pressure pushing them towards that fraud. And then they go into their workplace that has the opportunity, has weak or has no controls. And once it's justified that first time, it gets easier and easier. And so having a regular audit and having audit can help deter, especially that. But also, an audit can help with process efficiencies. We're not always there to make things more difficult. We generally will just listen to you and listen to how you operate, and we may be able to find a way to refine your policies and procedures to actually make it more time efficient for you.
So there's really a lot of benefits. So it's interesting, some of the words that you're using and some of the concepts that you're using. I was just in a virtual class with the National Center for State Courts, Institute for Court Management, on budget and fiscal management. And they talked about really how important a lot of these different concepts are. It was interesting to be in a course with other court administrators throughout the country and listen to some of the things that they don't have in their courts and how important they are.
Yes.
So,
well, yes, because our larger courts will, they'll have 50 clerks, they'll have their own IT division, they'll have their own financial division to work on that. But our smaller courts, they'll have somebody that doesn't have any actual experience in finances, managing court finances, and it's very niche.
Right.
And so having us come out and assist and help you is extremely beneficial, and it protects your court and it protects the public's money.
Absolutely. And it protects, your court, your job, just everything and gives the public that confidence that I think we're so lacking nowadays.
Yeah.
To be able to be really transparent with everything is important.
Which is why it was very important for audit to get to an acceptable level, because you look at what the legislative audit has, you look at what executive audit has. If we're the third and co-equal branch of government, why don't we have an acceptable audit unit? Which is probably why it was so easy for the legislators to say yes.
Right.
Somebody just had to say it.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. And I think that's a lot of times that's how these things get passed, is that there's so many facets to our world in the judiciary that, you know, the legislature may not think of all the different areas that we need help in. Share with us what have been your biggest challenges.
One of the biggest challenges is every single court in the state is completely different. They have their own policies and procedures, their own amount of staff, how many judges they have. They have their relationships with their city or county or with the state. And then each one of them will have, like I said earlier, there are 17 different iterations of case management systems in the state. And so on a typical audit, we may go in there and it's a new case management system we haven't seen because we're so resource range, we don't get to any courts. And then so we have a steep learning curve trying to find where everything is in another case management system.
Right.
And so those would be the biggest challenges.
That would be a challenge because you would have to spend that time then getting familiar with the way that specific court runs.
Yeah.
And then figure out, okay, now what do I need to look at? Since we're being transparent, who audits the auditor? You know, as you're expanding your department and as you're going to have more people, right? More opportunity for human error, more opportunity maybe for problems to occur. Do you already have some procedures in place to audit the auditor?
So audit departments are actually required by the generally accepted government auditing standards to have a peer review. But because peer reviews are extremely expensive and historically administration has not given audit any extra funds, we do not receive a peer review. But I am a part of a group of judicial auditors in the U.S. We're called the National Judicial Auditors Association. I think we have about 19 different states because, I mean, believe it or not, judicial audit is not in every single state. Many states will just have their legislative auditors audit the judicial branch. But we are working on a process to where we can review each other at the most cost-effective way as possible.
Oh, wow.
So we actually have to put a disclaimer in our audit reports that we do not have that requirement.
Oh, okay. Okay, but it sounds like it's in the works of, you know, a process to be soon to come.
It is one of my goals.
That's awesome. That's awesome. What else do you want us to know about auditing?
I mean, like I referenced earlier, I want courts to be comfortable with us. I don't want them to think of us as, you know, scary audit. We're not. I only hire friendly people or friendly auditors. We are friendly neighborhood auditor. I want you to feel comfortable calling us and asking us questions and thinking it's not going to trigger, you know, some massive audit and we're going to come inconvenience you. We want to be able to be proactive instead of always being behind issues. And when we come to audit, any minor inconvenience that will occur during the duration of an audit is going to have nothing on the aftermath of fraud.
True. That's true. So to be able to just look at any preventative and to partner with you to make sure that our Nevada courts are running efficiently, transparently.
Yes.
I think that's good. That's the key. So, all right, Nevada courts, you need to reach out to the audit department here, Brandi Jinkerson in particular, and let's blow her phone up and get her out there to help you out. I'm sure she's got plenty of tips. She has seen enough to know kind of how to help you run stuff smoothly and make some suggestions.
Yes.
Are the audit reports that you finish up with, are those open to the public?
You can make a records request to the state court administrator.
You know, it's always that balance, right, between making sure that you are giving public access that they need, So if a judge were to contact you and say, I need you to keep a certain part out of the records, are you allowed to do that?
No. I report my findings as is. If a judge or a court administrator of a court, they disagree with my recommendation, I let them know they can address that in their management response.
So they have the court has an opportunity to almost rebut the report if they, okay.
Yes.
And who does that go to?
So our audit reports are sent to the executive committee, and they're approved by them, which it consists of the Chief Justice and I think 3 other justices.
Okay. And so any disagreement that the court may have would go then to the committee as well. Oh, okay. Interesting. Well, it sounds like we have a lot of safeguards, kind of check and double checks, and so that's good.
Yeah, and we will, especially when we have this full new team.
Right.
I mean, I'm really excited to get out there and start traveling and meeting courts, because there's some courts in the middle of Nevada that I've never been to. Most courts I've never been to. I've only been with the department for 6.5 years.
Right. Well, Brandi's ready to come on out to your courts, so get on the phone and invite her out. What, as far as an auditor, what are you looking for?
A really good judicial auditor is going to be someone who's creative, somebody with ethics, integrity, because we have to make a lot of judgment calls in our job. Because a lot of courts, like I said, they're understaffed. And so segregation of duties may be something that's impossible right there at that time. And so we have to consult with them and work on another method to meet that segregation of duties. Maybe sending the judge a daily report or a weekly or monthly report and having them sign that report and maintain it and attest that they approve those transactions. And so we have to do stuff like that. You also want somebody that has some sort of a financial or accounting background. Attention to detail is extremely important in this job. If you are going to cite a court, you better have your I's dotted, your T's crossed, and your backup ready. Because not very many of them just take it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I just really want the courts in the state to trust us and realize we're on the same team. We have the same end goal, and that we're not against you. We want to work with you. We want to help you.
Well, it sounds like your team is going to be a really good court management tool for the courts to utilize and help them.
Yeah, my 3 supervisors, they're rock stars.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. All right, Brandi, well, we're going to close this out. I want to thank you again for being here today with us.
Thank you. This was a new experience. It was exciting.
All right. Well, hopefully we'll have you back again. We would love to hear about maybe checking on the whole auditing the auditor and that
Absolutely.
association that you're working with to get that done. So, all right. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you again for joining us for podcast episode 6 of All Allow It Nevada. Let's Talk Audit. Starting in December, we will be publishing a podcast every other week, and our next podcast will be published on December 1st. Make sure you listen in for our next episode of All Allow It Nevada. All of our podcasts are Nevada CLE accredited for 30 minutes. In order for you to receive those 30 minutes of continuing legal education, please complete a certificate of attendance and email it to jepodcast@nvcourts.nv.gov. Again, that email is jepodcast@nvcourts.nv.gov. In addition, if you have any topics that you would like to hear going forward, you can also send those into that same email, and that is jepodcast@nvcourts.nv.gov. I'm Anne Marie Mayu from the Supreme Court of Nevada Judicial Education Unit, your host. Please stay tuned for more episodes of All Allow It Nevada.